Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today, I want to talk about a short story because it is Short Story Tuesday. Today's short story is all about a very strange first date. I am referring to After One by Myra Goldberg, which comes from her short story collection, Whistling, which was published around 1993. For those who don't know, Myra Goldberg is a Jewish-American author, known for mainly just writing whistling. She wrote a bunch of short stories, which then got published into Whistling. That's pretty much all I know about this author, because I haven't really been able to find any other writings by her, and I haven't really been able to find a lot of other information. There is more information about an author named Myra Goldberg out there, which I think is funny, just one little letter difference. But based on what I found about Myra, she wrote this one book. She won a couple of grants and awards, but mainly it just seems like she got her work published in journals and magazines and whatnot. And even this short story, After One, was published in a journal or magazine before it was published in this particular short story book. So these come from other locations as well. But still a very interesting author. I really like her writing style, even though it's pretty cynical, which I'll talk about later in the video. But without further ado, let's talk about After One. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So After One focuses on a man and a woman who are set up on a date by a friend. The friend shows up on the date initially to see how things are going. And what's interesting is that the man is talking about his horrible ex-wife while the woman is there, but also while the friend is there, suggesting that maybe the friend is used to this, or that the reason they set these two up is because they can't stop talking about their bad past relationships. And not only is the man talking about that and how he doesn't really like women, but he understands that he's part of the problem. The woman is also talking about her ex and how neither of them really lets things go. And they can be kind of vindictive about things. So, the woman isn't really happy with her past relationships either, and that probably seems to be what the friend is keeping them, pushing them together for, or something like that. But they ask the friend to stay for a little bit, and then the friend leaves so they could actually have the date. After the date ends, they decide, well, there's nothing else to do, so we might as well have sex, just because it doesn't seem like there's a spark between them, but there often doesn't need to be for two people to have sex. So they do, and there's a bunch of hang-ups during sex. It doesn't seem like they particularly enjoy it, but they just continue to do it. And afterwards, the woman seems indifferent. She just brushes her hair in a mirror, and the man looks out a window and is like, I could kill you, and he threatens the woman at this point, which probably explains why he's still single. But at that point, the woman's like, I want you to leave. I don't really know you, even though she just had sex with him. She decides she doesn't want him around. The man is flabbergasted by this and continues to ask to stay. He even kisses her on the forehead, which she feels a bit of comfort by. She tells the story of her uncle, who used to bring her large gifts, but they were filled with remnants of trash or whatnot. So she really didn't get what she was expecting in that moment, and it made her kind of angry. And that really seems reflective of the situation that she is in now. And as the story comes to a close, the man is continuing to guilt the woman into letting him stay, which he's kind of leaning on the fence about. But he especially notes that if he goes outside and gets murdered in the night, she's to blame for that. And that's really where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there is a little bit we're talking about with this short story. It's pretty brief, it mainly focused on the date and the sex that comes afterwards. But Myra Goldberg seems to be talking about like one theme at the center of this, and that is that of self-sabotage. Like these characters are doing everything possible to ruin the date for themselves. Whether or not they're aware of it, that seems to be another thing. But they're both clearly unhappy. They both want to be in a relationship, but as the man notes, he's just seeking out a casual encounter, just sex and whatnot, and that seems to make him happy. Now, why would you tell that to somebody on like a first date? I guess being upfront about these sort of things is good, but given that your friend set you up on this as like a blind date, it seems like you're going out of your way to kind of make this as not successful as possible. But sometimes people know what they're getting into, and they still pursue that angle. People try to think, oh, I can fix this person. And I think both of them might be kind of thinking that here. But like they're doing everything possible. Like they're talking about their exes, which is always bad on a first date, because you're like, oh, again, it's good to be upfront, but also if you're talking about why those relationships failed and you're the reason it failed, you're not exactly selling yourself as a romantic partner. And they also seem to be insulting each other's appearance. I think the woman says like, oh, you're not pretty, but you're fair to the man, which is bound to hurt the ego and whatnot. And they're also, talking about their various hang-ups during sex as well as during the relationship, particularly noting that they're focused on their mother, like the man in particular was upset that his mother was dating an Irishman after she broke up with his dad, and it seems like he's kind of stuck on that, and the woman seems stuck on her uncle and not really getting what she thinks she deserved, like a giant gift when she was younger. So a lot of stuff that they're hung up on, a lot of reasons not to stay together. Especially on a first date, like, oh, I better seek someone else out. This person doesn't sound like they have their things together. They haven't been trying to improve themselves, mentally speaking, by going to a therapist, even though they clearly need it. But you have to ask questions like, why are they self-sabotaging like this? Because they're either aware that they're doing it, which I think the man is in this case, maybe the woman not so much, or they're not aware that they're doing it, but they've probably been doing this for each and every subsequent relationship after their marriage has failed. And I think a lot of it has to do with feeling that you're not worthy enough. In particular, the man feels like that because his wife constantly berated him, and he felt like there was something underneath the surface that she wasn't telling him for years and years and years until finally she left with her child. And that could be largely him not self-aware of the things he was doing in the relationship, but in the fact that she decided to leave with the child indicates that maybe he doesn't see himself as worthy in a way, that there's something that he wasn't doing right, and he continues to not do right, and so he might as well continue down this self-destructive path that he's going on. And the woman, she seems especially feeling like she's not worthy enough, talking about the story about her uncle, where she wasn't given the present that she thinks she feels like she deserved in some way, but also it happens during sex, because she talks about like how the man was pleasuring her, and she was like, oh, stop doing that, I don't want to come, and the man is like, why don't you want to come? And she's like, oh, I don't know, just whatever. And then he continues to do it, and she doesn't really stop him at that point. But the fact that she doesn't want that, like maybe she feels like she doesn't deserve that pleasure or that joy or that small bit of happiness that comes with orgasming or whatnot, and so I feel like that's like something that really stands out in this story about how you're self-sabotaging and how you avoid any comfort or anything like that. But however, like self-sabotaging doesn't really work if both people in the relationship are awful, because like you're going to be attracted to that broken or damaged person, and they could be putting out all the flags they can. But if you also have a number of flags, there's a lack of self-awareness that you should run away from this relationship, which is maybe interesting because they're both going to find someone who they can work on their things with, but at the same time, this relationship seems pretty doomed because they're both awful people, it seems like. And no matter how much they try to improve, like they don't have someone who's supporting them in that endeavor because they're so focused on their past hang-up. So it's really fascinating how Myra writes this first date, but also presenting this in a sort of doomed kind of any follow-up is going to be really sad to watch kind of situation. It also seems like Myra is talking about settling here, how both of these people wanted greater things, but maybe at this point in their life, like, this is all they can really hope for. Someone who is as broken or damaged as them, someone who has as many hang-ups as them. They might want some better things, but they can't really expect better things because they haven't really worked to improve themselves. And like these are the only people who are really going to be attracted to them. Because again, like the woman's husband left her because they were both kind of bitter in that relationship. And then the man and his ex-wife, like they were hiding things under the surface, not really willing to talk about them. And so ultimately, like in a cynical way, Myra Goldberg is talking about how we all have to settle, especially if we think we deserve greater things. Sometimes we don't get that because we only get what we're emotionally equipped to get, I think it seems like. Another thing worth noting is something that really helps this story as well as the other stories in this collection, but also kind of puts a damper on things, is the cynical voice of the narrator in each story. Whether it be a character in the story or just an external third party who's narrating the story, every narrator seems to have this cynical voice that sort of brings forth the worst thing imaginable in the characters, sort of flaring up some negative feelings or some of the worst expectations that like these characters don't actually love each other, or that these characters are feeling some of the worst emotions imaginable, and it seems like especially given that so many of these relationships are so many stories are in this collection are about relationships or sort of like not only romantic, but with your mother or something like that. Like it comes off extremely cynical. It comes off like all of these relationships are doomed to fail. There is no hope for any of the relationships we pursue. And I really like that because it feels real. It feels kind of, it feels sad, of course, but it also kind of, it kind of presents the author's view on life, that if she's writing about this, like she must have gone through something. And she, like on her website, one of the few things I can actually find about her, she said that she just writes and writes and writes and in order to find a truth that she believes deep down. And if this is what she believes deep down, then I hope she goes to therapy and like really examines the why she kind of believes that all of these relationships are doomed. But it feels very different from there can be hope or the sort of happy vibe that you get with relationships at times. Sometimes things are doomed to fail. Sometimes things do not end well. And I like that Myra Goldberg is presenting that those kinds of relationships in this collection. Anyway, those are my thoughts on After One by Myra Goldberg. I definitely recommend that you seek this out. You could probably find it online. If it's been submitted to a journal, you can probably find that online. But I do think that her short story collection, Whistling, is worth pursuing if you find it at your local library or something. This might be out of print. I might have just found like one of the few collections that are available. But yeah, I'd recommend you read it just because the tone of the stories, and many of the stories are pretty high quality in terms of narrative and what you're getting from these very sad characters. So yeah, pursue that if you can, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you want to comment on this short story or my review here, I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about this short story or this author if they do not already know. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and bad first date travels Farewell.